So hi, I'm Carol,
I'm Arzu.
and we organize Yarn Bombing Los Angeles, which is a fiber art collective and a public art collective.
Social practice is when instead of being in your own studio and creating your own work, you are collaborating with a group of audience members who are also, I don't know if that's the right term, but you are collaborating with a group of individuals who may or may not be involved with art making as part of their profession or as part of their daily lives, but you are trying to do community outreach and integrating that into your practice.
Say that for me, social practice is about trying to have your work make a difference in the social fabric or the social sphere around you by actively creating opportunities to participate in it. So I think what we do, like doing fiber art on the streets as opposed to fiber art in like some sort of gallery space or situation, is really important because we're making a statement in public even if there's like no one around to engage with us. Like they will eventually end up engaging with the artwork by coming upon it. So one of our projects that we're working on right now is KFAM Granny Squared. This is actually a piece from it, and we are asking people from all over the world to send us 5-inch by 5-inch granny squares, and we're sewing them into these designs to cover the entire Craft and Folk Art Museum.
I think this project conceptually is something that, first of all, it's really about community building through art making. I think what we're doing is bringing together a whole bunch of people who may be interested in creative endeavors, who might be engaged in creative endeavors, but nevertheless may or may not have the framework to put it out there. And they might be doing it on a very private basis. They might be just sharing it with their immediate circle of friends, but being part of, I think, a larger project might put him in contact with people that they wouldn't be in contact with, that they wouldn't have the exchange of information with, first of all. And second of all, it is probably opening their work to a wider audience that they might not have had access to before.
I think we've kind of unwittingly created a movement with this project because we definitely didn't expect like 500 people from all over the world to sign up, and right now we're trying to hook people up with each other who live in the same area. Like we're trying to get all the Connecticut crocheters and knitters who are participating together in the hopes that they'll feel really inspired to do their own yarn bombing projects. And I think that's something that might be unique to social practice, or that every social practice artist wants to create, is some sort of like sustainable change that exists like outside of themselves and that really starts like rippling throughout society.
I think what I see myself doing is really creating a framework for others to take advantage of something that is larger than their network would allow them to. And then my biggest hope out of that would be for them to then build their own frameworks going from there. Maybe initially mimicking the project that they were involved with, but then creating their own networks, creating their own projects, maybe looking at our project and say, oh, I could have done that in a different way. It would have been better if this and this and this were done. Please go ahead and create your own little project, own side project that will maybe one day will be participating in your project. Maybe it'll be larger than the project that we're working on currently.
There have been a lot of challenges to this project. I think the number one is jumping through the bureaucratic hoops and really trying to collaborate with City Hall, who doesn't really have a definition for obviously what we do because it's never been done. And I think that we're very lucky to be in Los Angeles and have a very liberal city administration, but even then we have to spend a lot of time researching city codes, and I can imagine that this would be very difficult for artists in other cities or other places that are a lot more stringent.
People from third world countries that came to visit my studio were like, oh my god, you have to get a permission from the city? Like in our own corrupt government, we could have just bribed someone and get away with it.
Well, we don't have enough money for bribes. That's the second problem of social practice.
But I guess what we do as social practice sometimes, a lot of times, borders on what social workers do, but we really don't have the training or the official title or any authority to perform any of this. So I think we're throwing off official people with what we do and how we approach things, because they want to see statistics and they have their own way of doing things. So here we come. We're doing this art project, but that also is social outreach, and that's also breaching on what they're doing. And we call it public art, and it's not a statue in the park, so therefore it's not what they expect from public art.
Just yet. So last question, how do we see social practice evolving in the future?
I mean, when you ask that question, you kind of have to think about where it came from. And I think there's been all these various practices that kind of fell under street performance. So I think it was called community art before, and it was partly performative, partly educational. So now it's being recognized by major institutions under the education department versus the curatorial department. This is the conversations we've kind of had before. I'm not saying anything new, I realize, but I think it has come from community public outreach to be recognized institutionally, at least under education. And I kind of would like to see where it's going so that it becomes more of an in-between curatorial and education department.